To the Americans for Limited Government podcast. I am Frank McCaffrey. Please subscribe. Look at this thing. I'm not good at pointing it. There you go. Please subscribe. We're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. We're getting really close to that right now. I'm joined by ALG President Rick Manning. Rick, everyone's talking about coronavirus. They're almost forgetting that we have a presidential race and an apparent nominee now for the Democratic Party. And guess what? He's someone who blabbers a lot, and he's getting himself in trouble again with something he said.
Well, yeah, Joe Biden, now I'm not going to give him the status of apparent nominee, but certainly he is the anointed one. And, he made news again by attacking a voter in Michigan and saying he was full of it based on him saying Joe Biden was pro-gun control. Joe Biden says he's pro-Second Amendment. The problem is he has appointed Beto O'Rourke to be his gun czar, and as such, and we'll give him that title if he is elected president. Beto O'Rourke has come out for mandatory confiscation of semi-automatic firearms that he doesn't like. So it's really hard to separate Joe Biden from that, particularly since Joe Biden has also voted for banning guns, and on top of that has attacked Bernie Sanders for not supporting allowing product liability legislation to be pushed against gun manufacturers, not because their guns didn't function, which is a normal use of product liability, but instead because they did function, essentially making every single gun manufacturer, gun dealer, and even anybody who sells a gun, or gives a gun through an estate to somebody else, all those people are going to be liable for the transfer of a firearm if that firearm should have been stolen and used in the commission of a crime. So what you've done under the Biden plan, what that does is it eliminates, if that were to occur, that would eliminate all gun sales in America.
Now, you mentioned...
It's as simple as that. So Joe Biden is as anti-Second Amendment as anybody in America, and but he's very pugnacious in denying it. And which tells you one thing: if you're the Second Amendment supporters, Joe Biden fears you, and you need to let him know that his anti-Second Amendment stances cannot be put up with. He needs to reconsider.
Okay, now you mentioned something about guns functioning. The question is, does Joe Biden function? I mean,
well, it's hard to believe that Joe Biden may or may not function as designed. He's he struggles, but that's something for Democratic voters to decide, and they're gonna forge ahead. But gosh, I would encourage anybody to just Google Joe Biden and just watch some tape of him walking around, and you'll see somebody, let alone what he says, but you'll see somebody who's really perhaps. I think it's reasonable to question whether they're fit for the job. But let's get on to the big news. Let's get on to coronavirus, Frank. What do you want to know?
Oh, yeah, well, there's a lot to know about coronavirus. It still seems to be this balance between people saying, oh, it's a terrible disease, it's a pandemic, it's going to wipe out the universe, and then these other people saying, oh, it's just the flu, don't worry too much about it. And I guess no one's really been able to figure out. I'm personally being vigilant. I must note I'm here in Texas, where Beto O'Rourke's gun stances did not exactly get him elected to Senate, but B, we have a lot of spring breakers coming down, and coronavirus is not stopping them. It is not stopping them at all. They're still out partying all night long, so maybe we can learn something from these young college kids. But the question is, NBA canceling seasons, people canceling rodeos and schools closing. Is it exaggerated?
Well, I think first of all, let me be clear. I believe that if an individual, private entity, or even a state or local entity chooses to take certain actions to close facilities, that's for them to decide, not for the federal government to decide. So I'm really more concerned in terms of these closures about whether or not, if the NBA believes that it's in their interest to close down their operations for a while to see what's going on, that's within their rights, and they can do that. If the National Hockey League chooses not to do that, that's within their rights, and they can do that. Individuals can decide whether or not they want to go to those games, and that's a different story. Individuals can decide, do I want to go see the NCAA Final Four basketball tournament? Well, if the NC2A decides to allow for people to attend, well, then individuals can decide whether they want to do that or not, whether the risk is worth the reward. But ultimately, if the NC2A or NBA or NHL or Major League Baseball, for that matter, if any of them decide to close down availability to the entertainment that they provide, well, then that's a choice they can make as individual private entities, and I have absolutely no objection to it. But I do want to put some things into perspective, because this makes it seem like, and certainly the stock market makes it seem like, that this is so crushing as to be almost turning us back to the dark ages. Globally, there's a site that was put together by a 17-year-old kid out in Seattle. It's a pretty amazing site. It's ncov2019.live. So go to ncov2019.live for the latest information. But globally, here's where you're at. There's been a total of 130,267 people who have been confirmed to have the Wuhan virus.
Yeah.
There's 4,711 people dead from that. 68,122 people have recovered, and the rest are still ill. And there's about 5,586 people who are considered serious in terms of being not just having a cold and feeling bad for a little bit, but actually are in serious condition. So those are your up-to-date stats. This thing is updated literally by the minute based on different, because it's tied into all the different countries' health organizations, and as they update the sites, this gets updated. It's pretty ingenious. In the United States, and the CDC just came out with new information at noon today, but these numbers are actually a little bit updated from that. The total of confirmed are 1,000 who've actually afflicted with the virus. Yeah. 1,336. There's 36 dead. Now the number is up to 38 right now, based on a couple of people who died in Washington. Recovered is 8, and serious is 0. And we're going to see that number on all across the board change. But here's what's true. In Washington State, 31 people have died. Of those, 23 were in one nursing home. So out of 38 people who have died, actually, I'm sorry, it's 39 people who have died in the United States from the Wuhan virus. 30 of them, or 31 of them, were from Washington State, and 23 of those were from one nursing home. One nursing home. So what does that tell you? It tells you that this virus will, if it takes hold, will do real damage. It is virulent and it is dangerous, particularly for people who are elderly and more ill.
Yeah, that's what we hear.
But it also appears to be something that comes into localized in local pockets and can be isolated. And given that, you have an opportunity, you have at least a small window into how this is going to play out. But for all the concern and all the commotion, and I think it's clearly the World Health Organization declared this a pandemic. We need to take it very seriously. And clearly, President Trump is taking it very seriously. Even with all that, though, we have 39 deaths nationwide. Yeah. And 23 of them are identified from one single outbreak in one single nursing home. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the first thing is if you are elderly, if you're in a nursing home, or if you know people in nursing homes, don't visit them. Elderly people are most likely to get this virus, and it's most likely to be fatal to those people. So given that, talk to your grandkids and kids on the phone, Skype with them, go to meetings with them, enjoy the internet, but don't have them over.
Yeah, not now.
Be smart, because it's certainly nursing homes and states which oversee the nursing home industry, should work with those nursing homes to basically close access to non-essential visitors. That makes a lot more sense than closing access to non-essential visitors to a hockey game or to a basketball game. Close the access to non-essential visitors to the places where you have the most potential damage in terms of loss of human life. The nursing homes, hospitals, and the like, where people have immune systems that are compromised and maybe in dire straits. So that's a common sense thing that can be done. That each state should take a look at, based upon what we know about this kind of virus and how it is and how it reacts. Now, one of the other things is that since we now are better, we can recognize it, and the Washington State situation occurred very early in this process, but because we can recognize it better, we can take our healthcare professionals in those nursing homes have a capacity to isolate patients who are sick away from those who aren't sick much more rapidly, because they're closely monitored patients. So you have an opportunity to do more isolation right at the point of where the virus is beginning to spread throughout a nursing home, and hopefully really diminish both the illness spread and the loss of life because of early treatment and the like. So that's just a little from just an idea of kind of how this works. And I'll give you another quick thought. Every year we have about 50,000 people die from car accidents, from traffic accidents. Okay? 50,000 people divided by 365 is over 1,000 a day.
Yeah.
Okay? So you've got about 1,350 a day, just doing the math off the top of my head. So we have about 1,350 total cases in America, 39 deaths. Traffic accidents, 1,350 deaths a day. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. 135 deaths a day. You have 135 deaths a day because 365. Yeah, you got 135 deaths a day.
Yeah.
So you're looking at in comparison, on every day there are 5 times more deaths in a car accident than there are total deaths from the coronavirus, the Wuhan virus, right now.
Yeah.
Does that mean we shouldn't take this seriously? Absolutely not, because if we don't take it seriously, you have potential for exponential growth with the virus, whereas the traffic deaths are constant, based on how many people are on the road and the like. But with the virus, you can get a lot more deaths just because if people don't take it seriously. So take it seriously. Do the things the CDC is recommending, but don't panic, because when you look at it, it is something that is. We know what it is. We now know we have more experience with it, and we have a better opportunity to isolate it and take the actions ourselves as responsible individuals. If we are in a vulnerable group, we have respiratory problems. If we're older, if we have compromised immune systems, those are people who are most at risk of having the worst case scenarios from getting the disease. So you know if you're that person or not, and take the proper steps. And for those of you with kids or in school and the like, just be smart. Don't take the kids over to visit grandma. And just be smart in terms of making certain that we don't spread the disease to those who are most vulnerable.
Yeah, I do have kids, and I know how scary that is. And my school is preventing travel off campus right now, and they're taking a lot of my son's school. They're taking a lot of precautions to see to it that the coronavirus doesn't pop up in the school. And I worry about the parents dropping their kids off, and what does that mean?
The thing to remember, Frank, is there isn't one. We have not seen one recorded death of anybody under the age of 20.
Yeah.
Okay. It is the challenge with children isn't that it's necessarily deadly for children. The challenge with children is they carry it back to somebody else, and that person is really they effectively are the delivery agent for the virus. Because what we've seen with kids, not just here but around the world, is that kids are really pretty stand up to this. With the Spanish flu, which it was the opposite. It had young people were died from the Spanish flu in 1918, and old people died from the Spanish flu. So it was like a U kind of this way. With this virus, it's like this in terms of the growth curve in terms of deaths. So you've got with this being 80 plus, where it's about 13.5 deaths per 100 per thousand, I think is the number. 13.5%, so it's 13.5% deaths. So you've got so it's relatively high, but under 20, there's zero. So while we should take precautions in our schools, the main reason for those precautions is kids are little germ magnets, and they crawl around the dirt. They do put stuff in their mouth. They do all that kind of stuff.
Yes, this is true.
Presumably don't do. And as a result, they bring it home, and then that's where the problem starts. Is them bringing it home, and so just be smart. Once again, there's a lot of things that are going on. There's a lot of people reacting. There's a lot of people afraid of liability if they should have a golf tournament or a NBA game and somebody were to get sick, that they might be sued for engaging in hazardous behavior. And there's also a lot of people trying to act in the public health interest and costing themselves a lot of money by not performing, not having the entertainment that they might have, at least open to a live audience. So those are all real things. We're all going to deal with those things. We're going to get a little disruption. But the president has done the things necessary to try to isolate the disease. His step yesterday to limit the travel from Europe, absent the UK, is based on CDC recommendations that a majority of our new cases are actually people coming from Europe. So we sit there, we did the Chinese travel ban, and we limited the new cases from China. Now we did one from Italy a couple of weeks ago, and so we limited those cases, and now we've extended that to all of Europe because a majority of those cases that we're seeing popping up here, they can trace it back to somebody from Europe bringing the disease into a new community and then spreading the disease from there. Not intentionally, but just the nature of you carry something you don't know you have it, then you get sick here and everybody else gets sick. So that's what the CDC's determined. The president has taken actions based on the recommendation, which is exactly the right thing to do.
Okay, now, no, I was just saying, you were talking earlier about car accidents. I'm an old reporter. I've seen so many car accidents that, I've lost track, and I got to tell you, the end result of a fatal car accident generally is not a pretty sight to see. And still, to this day, I don't fear driving. I never hear anyone say I fear driving. But you're more likely to die from a car accident than coronavirus. And like I said, the sight of a car accident is not pretty, so... I mean, if you show the signs of coronavirus, you can just go to the doctor, and chances are you'll be able to get it taken care of. I personally, it sounds like it's just a panic. You can't do that with a car accident. With a semi losing control and hitting you, you can't do that, but you can with the coronavirus. So, I mean, do people forget about that? Do people forget that if you show the signs, you can go get help right away?
That's correct. And what's more, you can isolate from it. But let me give you one other stat just for an interesting stat. If you look at all the states in the United States, the sixth place in terms of the most number of confirmed cases was the Diamond Princess cruise ship. Okay? The 11th was the Grand Princess cruise ship. So you have two cruise ships accounting for about 65, 66 of the 136 number of confirmed cases. So, when you think about this, understand that those cruise ships that we were all watching and saying, oh, these people are trapped off coast and it's so sad. Those are actually are the 6th largest and the 11th largest source in terms of a location of the coronavirus. And that puts it into some perspective in terms of what's happening in places like Illinois, Oregon, New Jersey, and elsewhere where we see reports of cases. But from right now, in real time, right now, those 2 cruise ships that's where they fit into the overall scheme of things. That will change because there will be more cases elsewhere for 2 reasons. Number one, we've got more testing kits out, so we'll be able to identify more cases. We'll be able to identify cases that are really kind of low-level cases. But the deaths are pretty much a set. We know if somebody died. We know if they, because we've been monitoring this, if they died from the coronavirus. But we will see more confirmed cases because you're going to have more testing. And you'll also see them because the disease will be popping up places and it will be growing. But through the process that we've got, through the process we've talked about in terms of just not being dumb and going out and, if you're a college kid, you're worried about it, here's what you shouldn't do. Don't sit there and drink from the same beer mug that somebody else is drinking from, or drink off of a beer bong that everybody else is drinking off of, because that's a good way of transmitting the disease.
Yeah, well, I'm also told rubbing your face.
It's just about basic common sense, and that's what people can do. Use basic common sense. I'm not going to say everything's going to be okay because I don't know that, but I will know this. That is the single best way to for you to take control of your own life and try to mitigate against the risk that you face. And as people believe in individual responsibility, that's all I can do for you. I would also, if you are a senior, I would consider going to the CDC website, Center for Disease Control website. They have tips for seniors on things you should do. Go to that website and check out the tips for seniors. Later today, we will be putting a link to that website up on our website, dailytorch.com. So anybody who wants to grab it can grab that from our website, dailytorch.com, and we'll put it up there and put it in the top rotation, so it'll be in the lead throughout for the remainder of the crisis, because I think it's important that those who are most vulnerable to dying from this disease have access to the most information. So we'll be putting that up on dailytorch.com, and I would encourage you to check it out.
All right, and then one more question before we wrap it up. Are you upset that the NBA season is over, or are you like me, and it seems like everybody else, you kind of sort of care about the NBA, but not like you used to when we had the Jordan era?
It doesn't affect me one way or the other. I do feel for those people who are vendors and people who clean up the arenas and people who work as ushers in those arenas. Those are largely part-time jobs or piece jobs, and they're very, people who are doing them are going to lose their paychecks. Yeah. And so I feel very sorry for those people. But in terms of the overall NBA, I have a hard time mustering a lot of concern for a bunch of billionaires and a bunch of millionaires who suddenly are going to have to be figuring out something else to do with their lives. But I'm just not a big basketball guy. Now, I am concerned about the fact that the Washington Nationals, who won the World Series last year, their opening day, which was supposed to be a big deal, and they're going to do the banners and everything like that, either there's not going to be anybody there, or they're going to have to cancel it here in D.C. because the mayor has declared that no gatherings of more than 1,000 people, I think, can occur in the city, and as a result, the opening day is at risk. I'm concerned about that, but those are inconveniences The real people who are impacted are the vendors and others who work at those games and won't be getting paychecks, won't be getting tips. And the people who work in restaurants around the stadiums who won't be getting the tips and what have you, the customers that they normally would have. So that's the real concern on the shutting down of the sports and entertainment calendar that's being done. So we'll have to see if that's still warranted moving forward. But it's certainly, the challenge, Frank, is this: if you were to follow everything that the health professionals say you should do, you would essentially shut down the entire economy and everybody drinking out of sippy cups in their own home until the virus is passed. And so you end up, and a lot more people would die from not having access to food, not having access to medicines, and not having access to various other things than will likely die from normal behavior if people are smart about how they behave. So there's absolutely no reason to shut down all of society with a goal of getting to zero and zero risk. The prudent thing is to make certain, do what the president's done, shut down the travel from places where there's high risk of people with infection traveling here and spreading the disease. Go and deal with the nursing homes and other senior locations, so you're able to make it so you're limiting the possibility of a coronavirus infection in those facilities that is most likely to be deadly. And do the basic social distancing that makes sense to each one of us based on our own health situations and our own willingness to accept a risk. But that is the wisest thing to do. Be smart. Have respect for your fellow man. Don't spread. If you've got a cough, stay at home. Don't be a hero. So that's the best advice. And there will be, and when we get to the end of this, it is hopeful that we look back and we say, why did we go through all that nonsense over something that really didn't amount to much? And we kind of criticize the fact that we were inconvenienced for having to because of this. Because the fact is, the part of this that's unknowable is what happens if we don't engage in social distancing. And that's the unknowable part. And given that, let's make certain that it remains unknowable by engaging in the appropriate social distancing as makes sense for your individual circumstance.
All right. Well, thank you very much to the hyper-informed president of ALG, Rick Manning. Everybody, please stay coronavirus free. I'm going to the gym after this. Guys, I've noticed people aren't even going to the gym anymore.
Take your little Clorox sheets and wipe off the equipment and all the benches before you get on them, Frank.
Yeah, I might have to, but I still think it's being exaggerated.
Home and shower at home, just as a point of recommendation. But yeah, go to the gym, and go and just wipe off stuff before you use it.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rick, and please, everybody, stay calm and coronavirus free. Have a nice day.
Take care. Bye-bye.